Summertime Rendering finished airing in the summer of this year, and I wanted to take a moment to step back and simply admire at the beauty of the setting of the show. Although I can talk about the philosophical implications of the shadows, the overarching theme of the destructive power of human greed, or even the admiring leadership skills of Shinpei, I will choose not to for the simple fact that other YouTubers have already done that excellently well. For this video, I simply want to highlight one thing: the setting of Summertime Rendering and the beauty of rural Japan. What you're looking at right now are real-life photos of Tomogashima, a cluster of 4 islands in the inland sea just offshore Wakayama, Japan. Amongst this, Okonoshima, I'm sorry if I butchered that, was an old Japanese military base from the Meiji period until the Second World War. Even today, the remains of old forts and the defense storage areas built during those times still stand. While Tomogashima doesn't have a bustling populated town as featured in Summertime Rendering, it does share the eerie vibe felt in the show. When I was looking at some of these photos, I couldn't help but feel somewhat curious about what things would have been back then. People had a history on this island, and that history persists to this day in the form of these military structures. By now, you can probably also tell the immense vegetation that expands across all 4 of these islands. The view is not only beautiful, but untouched by mankind for decades, and surrounded by a vast ocean across all 4 directions. Summertime Rendering takes place on the fictional island of Hitogoshima, which is based on these islands and the nearby town of Kada. In the show, I couldn't help but fall in love with the quiet beach, the beautiful shrine, and the traditions of the people of this island. Contrary to the busy lifestyle that people usually get in the West, especially in major cities like Manhattan, the anime shows you a more peaceful, quiet, simple side of life. If we ignore for a second the crazy shit happening with the shadows. But what I am saying is, this is a small town with a history, friendships, traditions, long days of boredom for the youth, and the ordinary routine of a simple yet profound life for the old. Although I didn't grow up in Japan, I am intimately familiar with this sort of life, having grown up in a small town myself. My own father grew up in the countryside of the Caribbean island of Cuba during the 1970s, and he often tells me of the creepy stories and mysterious aura surrounding these villages. The dark, scary stories contrast with the beauty of the place, and I think this dissonance works really well in the show and often goes unnoticed. Summertime Rendering is not the only show that uses this type of setting to expand on a mysterious/horror plot. Shiki, Ghost Hound, and When They Cry are also great examples of this. Everyone knows When They Cry, but what I love the most about it is how, when you take out the time traveling, the Hinamizawa syndrome that made people go crazy, and the damn war that led to a fight between clans, when you take that out, you're left with a very beautiful location, a small town with teenagers exploring both the world and themselves. The main protagonist hates this place and hates the quiet, solemn life of the town, yet it was in that town that he met many wonderful people, like Rena and her friends, and had a life of friendships and adventure. I couldn't help but sympathize with many of these characters, having grown up in a small town east coast of the United States during my teen years. Teenagers want and love the city because it gives them places to explore and is exciting. A quiet town with not much to do leads many young people to feel bored half the time, and they might end up hating it. We see something like this in Summertime Rendering as well. Shinpei left his town and only came back years later, but that doesn't change his memories and experience. Sooner or later, we all return to our roots and our past as we share a connection with the world we grew up. The friends you meet growing up are the kind of friends you never forget even after you're an adult. Settings based in rural Japan and the solemnity of the countryside teach us to appreciate life as it is. We're often caught in our own world of corporations, buildings, shops, etc. And during the pandemic, we literally isolated ourselves from the outside world. Summertime rendering and shows with a similar setting and plot taught me to look at the beauty of the simple and the small and appreciate our past, our present, and our future. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.